Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you very much for joining me here today. We're going to take a quick look at Flux, and just before we do, we usually look at Bitcoin, but I can kind of just summarize it really quick for you. The price is trending above support at 61,000, right at 62, and it's kind of just holding steady there, right? So we tested 60,000 yesterday, bounced off that support effectively, and we're just above that support channel. And the next major resistance is 65 to 66,000. So we'll see what happens with that soon, hopefully this upcoming week. Now, when it comes to Flux, obviously we can see a pretty big increase. Oh, and I apologize. If you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. And just note that I love trading and I love helping people become better traders, right? So I created a trading community specifically for that reason, where I share all of my trades with my members. You can one-click follow and check that out in your own time. I have a link in the description below or above. I think the card's there, where you can just kind of see what that entails. Now, taking a look here at Flux. First and foremost, with this guy here, we've obviously had a tremendous amount of increase in the past 3 to 4 trading days. So we're trending upwards about 210% in about a 72-hour period, right? So that's pretty significant. So what we want to do is take a look at some of the basics, and we'll probably have to pull up the Fibonacci retracement lines, kind of see what's going on there, and see if we're at a state of exhaustion yet as well for TD sequential. But simply put, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that this is overextended, but some coins have been surprising us lately, right? Like Cadena, for example, just shooting straight upwards, parabolic, with no retracement in 5 days. So it's kind of crazy how this is happening for some things, but it makes sense. It's par for the course. That's kind of what happens right now. Now, RSI is up over 70. We don't need to worry about that. Still a little premature, but generally speaking, RSI over 70 is considered a buy signal. Correction, a sell signal. But what you do is you actually want to sell when the RSI is coming down closer to 70 instead of when it's on its way up. Now, granted, right now would be a good, decent time to consider taking profits. That's just kind of how I think, right? I like to take profits while I still can. I hate leaving money on the table, but for lack of better terms, this may not have reached its peak yet. We don't know yet, all right? So that's kind of the case there. MACD, pretty straightforward. We don't need to worry about that. Let's go ahead and move on to the 4-hour and kind of see if there's anything else that we can understand. Not much, really. Honestly, priced above both moving averages. RSI is still over 70. That's pretty standard for both the 4-hour and the 1-day chart. So why don't we just jump ahead and go right on to the 1-hour chart here, kind of see what's going on. So first of all, Ichimoku Cloud obviously well above, but just bear in mind the price were to come down and reset or retrace, for lack of better terms, it'll oftentimes bounce off of the cloud. I've noticed that's a pretty strong support level in bullish trends like these. Again, a little too early to tell. We'll take a look at Fibonacci retracement here in a moment, but generally speaking, I like that we have a nice short period of consolidation here. That wasn't, maybe 8 to 10 hours, somewhere in that range at best. That's not a long time, but that's definitely helpful to allow this next leg up, right? Because if we look at TD sequential, we'll probably be starting right at a 1 or 2 here. And that's good. This basically just means that this bull run could potentially last for another 8 to 12 hours. Now, is it going to keep shooting up as high as it just did for the next 8 to 12 hours? Probably not. But I've been surprised a lot lately with the behavior of some of these altcoins. So your guess is as good as mine. But what we can do now or next is kind of look at the Fibonacci retracement and kind of get an idea of big picture what the potential is for this coin if it were to continue on its merry way and just keep trending upwards as it has so far. So why don't we just go ahead and take the lowest, most recent point. We'll go ahead and draw it up to the top. And keep in mind too, this isn't like foolproof based on the fact that it's still increasing. Sometimes you can get close with Fibonacci retracement lines, but when the price just keeps going up, up, and up, then you kind of have to just keep moving it up with it, and it effectively it's a plus or minus game, right? So you want to work with, I guess you could say, averages here. But for lack of better terms, let's go ahead and mark some things here. One before we do, actually, because I know that this was likely an ICO day. I could be wrong. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. Comment below. But I was only able to find pretty much the one here, and there's also one on Bittrex, right? So it's a lot. It has more data here, so I presume this is the ICO date here. So just bear that in mind. If it's not, that's okay. But it was introduced to KuCoin on that day, right? So we'll just go ahead and mark that as well as a potential support. That does also work as a strong support level once it's broken, and it is obviously very well broken here. Granted, the 1-day candlestick hasn't closed yet, but you know what I'm saying. I think it's a pretty strong chance it'll stay above that in the next 8 to 10 hours of trading. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at some support and resistance levels. Right now on Fibonacci, 0.5 is a pretty common retracement, so I usually always just by default, even if I don't have Fibonacci retracement up, I take the halfway point from where it started and to its highest point, and then basically just cut it in half, and that's commonly right where the price will eventually relax. Again, it may or may not happen here, but what we want to do is look at the history, right? So let's take a quick look at this little guy, just to give perspective. We have a nice increase. Bear in mind, that's still pretty good. This was actually, what, 100%. So it looks really small compared to what's going on now, but we actually had a really big increase here recently on the 24th. So if you see that increase there, right? It goes up, retraces down, and then it eventually consolidates about halfway, right? Can you see that halfway point? I know that's a terrible straight line, but there's a halfway point, and that's the 0.5 on Fibonacci, right? That's this green line here. So this previous resistance level being now the support, there's a strong chance that the price could consolidate in this little area here if it were to retrace that far. Now, we don't know if it's going to retrace that far, but here's the thing. We want to look at this as well, because even though the one-day candlesticks, what is it? We're looking at, we've only got about 2 or 3 candlesticks so far, right? But if we look at the 4-hour chart, we can see that there's a lot more, a lot more volume here essentially in the recent past. So for lack of better terms, we look at this, we can see we're at a 6 out of 9 on TD sequential. And if you're familiar with TD sequential, it basically just takes the 4th previous candlestick and counts it higher, keeps counting up to 9 if it's higher. Essentially just, giving us an understanding of how market exhaustion is looking. If you look back here, right, for example, you see 1 to a 9, and the price keeps continuing upwards. It shouldn't have done that. Kind of the traditional laws of trading prevent that from happening normally because the price should retrace and, every up has a down, so to speak, right? Well, that's not happening here. We just went from a 9 straight over to a slight reset there. We got about 4 hours of 4 bars of consolidation, about 16 hours, and then the price ramped back up again. So for lack of better terms, in this little run here from the 1 to the 6, we should hypothetically see around 3 to 7 more hours worth of bullish momentum. Now, not to say it's going to just keep on shooting past through these resistance levels. It may consolidate and reset, but there's a likelihood of that, right? So in other words, we do have potential of, I would say, 12 more hours, if you will, 3 more candlesticks on the 4-hour chart of that momentum, right? So just kind of note that. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but it could. And if it were to, let's just kind of go with I would say a better case scenario here, right? So we get that continuation, it pumps up again really hard, which I think is less likely just based on its recent history. It looks to be very overextended in my personal opinion. But if you look at the price total, like we could get upwards of about 316 could be a better case scenario, right? Now, I think the likelihood of that happening right now is pretty low. I think that we should expect to see some consolidation retracement. And the fact of the matter is, some of these lines down here, like 0.618 on Fibonacci is a pretty common retracement line. Let's just go ahead and mark some of these recent levels here. Obviously, we got the current resistance at 166. That's tentative for the moment because it was just pumping to that level. And then, of course, why don't we just go ahead and mark a couple of other significance as well. We'll do this guy here, 1.618, and then, of course, we'll go with the best case scenario up here at about 3.16. So, for lack of better terms, if you were going to be, in this for the longer haul, what you do is you set your profit targets just below these resistance levels, right? Now, you don't want to put them right at the resistance levels because oftentimes price will reject and you don't get filled right at that exact point. So for me, I commonly set 3 profit targets. I do this for my community members too, where I send out my signals and I provide 3 profit targets. Typically, they're just below the resistance levels and they allow for you to take profits before the price were to potentially retrace. Now, again, the price could continue upwards and you've taken your profits and you'll still have a 2nd or 3rd profit target to still collect that. But the bottom line is that, in order to stay profitable, you want to kind of set those realistic time frames or the price range rather. Okay. So anyways, that's kind of the big picture here. So for lack of better terms, to summarize, I think the price could very well consolidate in the channel of just say $1 to $1.20. I think there's a strong likelihood of that just based on the natural ways in which coins eventually consolidate. It did this previously as well. It took about 2 days, but it got all the way down to about the halfway point. So again, that's right around $1.20. Better case scenario, again, I would say month end, it's likely, as long as we get some consolidation. It could either go one way or 2 ways, right? Could consolidate here at resistance, then break up and leg up again. Or it could obviously slowly start fizzling out and come back down. We don't truly know, but those scenarios, what you see here, it's very likely for one of those 2 things to happen. If it does keep going up, though, keep this in mind. It goes all the way up to $3.20 or $3.16 or whatever. Then the likelihood of it coming down is that much greater, right? Because again, there's a magnetism when it comes to trading. What goes up must come down. There's standard deviation, and we can kind of see, even if we pull up the standard deviation here, let's go with a smaller time frame. You can see the price is top. It's close to the overextended point. In other words, that's why it's retracing a little bit, because it came up too high. And you can see it right here, of course, as well. You can see the price got too high, had to come back down, correct itself, consolidate, and go sideways. Thankfully, we have this nice period of consolidation right here, so this next leg up makes sense. Right? So again, just some stuff to consider, but I think big picture, month end, it's pretty safe to say we'll probably be in the $3 range. That would be a pretty safe estimate here for Flux. But again, me personally, I'd wait for the price to consolidate a little bit, or finish kind of testing these resistance and support levels first before jumping in. Because the fear of missing out is a bad thing. I recognize there's times where you can miss out. I get that. But try not to just be that person that jumps right in. Okay. Anyways, I hope you found benefit here. I know I kind of rambled on a little bit extra there than usual, but I just want you to be careful and cautious. And obviously, to my patrons, just be smart and think it through. Set your profit targets before you get in, and ensure that you just have a good big picture best practice in mind, right? That's how we become better traders. So thanks again for joining me here. If you're not currently a patron, feel free to check that out. We only have a certain amount of limited slots available this month, and obviously the price is increasing next month too, so lock in your rate if you get a chance. And I want to thank you so much for joining me, of course. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you all in the next one. Take care.